Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here today. It's really an honor to be here. As Jennifer said, I'm the head of strategy and M&A at IAC. And IAC today is a leader in the search, personals, local space. You know some of our bigger brands, Ask, Evite, City Search, and Match. My job is to build our portfolio of new growth brands. And we started on the project I'm going to talk to you about today over 2 years ago. And that's to get IAC into the web-based video game market. This is a major area of investment for the new IAC, and I think one of the most interesting opportunities on the web today. So, basically every major media industry has been significantly disrupted by the internet, except video games, and we think that's next. First, let's look at the traditional video game market. What we're doing is defining the online core games market. This year, the traditional market will be almost $41 billion. And we think if a portion of that just moves online, that's what we're focused on. Now, let's look at what makes this $40 billion market and why we think it's so ripe for disruption. So let's start with some background. There are really two types of video games. Console-based, like the Xbox, PlayStation, and Wii, which does about $7 billion a year in hardware and $11 billion in software. And the leading players in these markets are EA, Activision, Sony, and Microsoft. But games have become more and more focused on the internet as a way to enable multi-user play. And that costs the user an additional $50 for an online subscription to network your console game or your PC game, or if it's access to a single multiplayer game like, say, a World of Warcraft, that can be an extra $150 for the consumer. And the actual content continues to be delivered through offline retailers like Walmart and Best Buy. So it's a very expensive and inefficient distribution channel. And the size of these games has only continued to increase as they continue to compete on richer and richer graphics. So due to the economics, this is a very hit-driven business. Now let's look at why that is. So when I mentioned the market as a $41 billion market this year, that's really because the individual units are still selling for between $50 and $60 each. So a big game like Grand Theft Auto that released earlier this year, there's another game, a big game out this week, will sell over 500,000 copies, millions of copies in a week, making about half a billion in revenue for that game. So a typical high-quality video game costs about $15 million to make and 2 to 4 years to develop. That's not even including a $3 million marketing cost. So games must sell, on average, and this doesn't take into account the huge hit games at the top of the pyramid, about 650,000 units to break even. So in the last console generation, that's over a span of 8 years. Less than 500 titles out of the 6,000 released over that time span even broke that. So basically, 20% of the titles generated 80% of the $6 billion in revenue generated over that cycle. So it's an expensive product, it takes a long time to produce, and has a very high chance of failure. Oh, and for console games, you have to convince your users to buy a new console every few years. In other words, this is nothing like the web. So we saw the ubiquity of broadband connectivity and exploding capabilities of Flash and other similar technologies that would really enable a breakthrough in this market. So if you look at the alternative, we look at it as a new gaming category. This isn't casual games. This is really hardcore games moving to the web. So, and that alternative, we think, is so disruptive and cannibalistic to the current market that most publishers, with the exception of a few, don't actually focus on moving their market online. So what's the alternative? We think it's full and engaging video games that compete with traditional video games in nothing but a web browser. So no downloads, no client installations, all through the browser. So what are the advantages of this approach? They should be pretty obvious. The first, low cost and rapid development. This should be really obvious to anybody with a website. What you can do online that you can't do offline. You don't have to spend years in development to know if you're going to have a hit or not. Metrics, back-end systems can tell you pretty quickly if users like your game or not. And you can release games a lot earlier. 2 is free access. So instead of getting someone to pay for a game and figure out if they like it, you can give users a trial. You can actually make the game free. And then the whole host of rich revenue models that the web offers really work for video games. So subscription, virtual items, whatever works for a particular genre. 3, entirely online distribution. And this is probably the biggest one. You can save to the web, you can share a game, and most importantly, people in emerging markets in the global user base can access your game. People that don't have consoles, that never had consoles, are going to discover their first video games on the web. And 4, and this is no different than the traditional market, the games have to be good. So high engagement has to be as high, if not higher, because a significant portion of the audience you're going to be taking from consoles and from traditional PC games and moving them to the web. So we created our brand called Instant Action, and we launched it only a few months ago. A lot of really hard patented technology has gone into our platform to make this idea a reality. What we've done is enable the first web-based video game platform. And what we mean by that is we have some competitors. There are people trying to move the video game market online. Most are very large client, independent installs, require massive downloads of game and art. What we'd wanted to do is make everything run completely inside a browser so the user never had to go outside that. And that, we think, is a big factor in the success. 2, we fund and develop original IP. So one of our core models, in addition to the technology to enable this kind of 3D that had not been possible inside a browser, is our own original titles. All of the games are multiplayer, all console quality AAA titles delivered in the browser that can also go full screen. And of course, most importantly, built for the global audience. So we've developed a network, we've developed a platform, and we've developed a portfolio to fund games. So let me tell you about our traction. We launched only a few months ago, and we've really grown from nothing to over 700,000 registered users in just a few months. We're going to hit 1 million very soon. And we believe that this is our standalone site. We haven't relied on social networks or other things to grow. And our users spend on average 30 minutes per day on the site. Now on peak days, it's much higher than that, and for our core users, it's much higher than that. But that's what we use as our metrics for success. All the milestones we set up for ourselves, we've essentially beat. We've got a global audience right out of the box, which was one of our core goals. About 50% of our audience is inside the US, 50% outside. And our core demographic is reached, which is really male, 13 to 34. So let me show you why people are so excited, I think, about Instant Action. The first thing I'm going to show you is a trailer for our hit game Legions. Now, I'm just going to quickly log on to the site, which live. So that's usually ill-advised at these conferences, but just want to show you how that trailer translates, and the games are really playable inside the browser. So my colleague Jason is backstage, and he's driving the demo, and he's going to quickly log on and show us one of our games. The first thing we're going to do is log on to a game that actually is only available to our VIP members. It's our racing game that's launching in the next couple of weeks. As you can see, all running in the browser. Jason's logging on, picking a racetrack, customizing his car, and he's going to quickly start a multiplayer session. What we've done to enable this is basically a very small plugin, under 100K, and all of the social media features that you'd expect in a web property are basically been built into the platform, so the game and the social aspects are not separate. Now, just because we have limited time, I'm going to ask Jason to quickly just switch into another game to show you how easy it is just to switch and seamlessly transition to a new game. So he's online, and he's going to find a game that's going on live right now. We have dedicated servers and individual peer-to-peer technology. He's going to log on to one of the dedicated servers where I think we have a lot of users. And there's basically a party going on now. He's jumping into that. People probably from all over the world logged in. If it's 10 o'clock, I'm sure they're not in the US, because kids usually are not playing this early here. And he's going to log on and just fire up Legions, which I just showed you the trailer. And you can see just how rich and how great it looks, I think, in the browser. While he's doing that, I'll just quickly go over our business model. Basically, every game is different. Every genre is different. We charge for games via subscription, virtual items, other models, competition, advertising, whatever works for the particular game and the particular genre. Our portfolio focus is to invest in... Whoa. Our portfolio focus to invest in AAA action titles, first-person shooters, and MMOGs coming out. We have an MMOG coming out the beginning of next year. So I think we heard him back there just now. So this is just showing you saw the trailer. Here's the actual game running in the browser. Most of the gameplay on our site right now is this game. It's done really, really well for us. Some other games coming out are the racing game you saw. We have 7 games right now live on the site. We have a World War I simulation game coming out and a MMOG, as I said, coming out in early '09. So in conclusion, we think we're ahead of the market, and which will no doubt have to deal with the web at some point. Thanks.